I'm here at the Rosenstiel campus on Virginia Key with Ben Kirtman. He's the director of CIMAS, which is the Cooperative Institute for Marine and Atmospheric Studies, and he's got an appointment in atmospheric science here. Ben, you've been doing a lot of work to make climate projections more useful and digestible to practitioners. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so one of the things we're learning by interacting with the people that actually have to make a decision is what are their specific needs, and can we design the science that we're doing to satisfy their specific needs. So the example that I often use is if there's one day in a row where there's 6 inches of rainfall, the infrastructure's okay. 2 days in a row, it's a big challenge. 3 days in a row, the infrastructure might fail. So what they want to know is what are the chances going forward in the future that they're going to have 3 days in a row of 6 inches or more rainfall. That's the kind of, we have to design our science to satisfy that decision support need.
Right. And might have seemed to you as a kind of arbitrary number, and yet
I made it up.
super important.
Yeah, I kind of made it up, but it turns out in our interactions with the people that are actually making the decisions, the boots on the ground, that's exactly what they wanted. So that was lucky, but I think most of the time you have to actually interact with those, and that's the innovation that's happening here, is we're starting to interact with those decision makers on day one of this project to figure out what do they need and how do we design the science we're doing to satisfy that need.
So talk a little bit about some of your other initiatives that are trying to help make this climate science digestible to resilience and emergency management practitioners.
So one of the big projects we've been running since 2016 is to produce routine forecasts of what the climate system is going to look like for the next year or so. And in that project has become sort of a key underpinning of the outlooks, the forecast outlooks for next season, next year, that NOAA issues to the public, but also to a large swath of water managers, fire risk managers, energy providers. And we're learning a lot about how to package that information so that it's straightforward for them to digest, whether that be specific data sets, but also graphical images of what should they be looking at, because they have a fire hose of information and they need to make decisions very quickly. And so we want to make sure we give them precisely what they need in order to make those decisions.
And this is a exercise that the Weather Service has done over the last 30, 40, 50 years, but it's relatively new for the climate field.
It's relatively, so they do it for weather forecasts all the time, right? They've been doing that for years. But this really kicked off actually, it started in 2011 to really make decision support forecasts of what the climate system would look like, and has become the official, that's a big deal to us, the official NOAA product that they issue to the public. And it's very different than a weather forecast. You know, a weather forecast, 50% chance, very easy to digest. But climate information is much more complicated because it involves, you know, how are orange growers going to respond? How is water management going to proceed? How are you going to move energy, oil in the east for the winter? How is the U.S. Forest Service going to redeploy firefighting resources because it's going to be really bad in Northern California as opposed to Southern California? Whatever it is, that's a much more complicated problem to think about. And so the climate risk forecast world is much more difficult, it turns out, than the weather forecast world.
And what should we look for in terms of climate risk forecast? Like, what's on the horizon that we may not know about but is on your radar?
What's on my radar is this, you know, you hear so much about AI and artificial intelligence and machine learning. It's the combination of these AI data-driven approaches and you know, the traditional physically based models, how they're going to combine. And there's going to be the possibility of asking, you know, the water manager in North Platte, Nebraska is worried about, you know, he's got $10 million and he wants to know what he should spend that $10 million on in the face of climate change. He's going to be able to ask something, and it's going to give them this AI thing, and it's going to give them, you know, quantitative, detailed information about how he should spend that money to deal with whatever problem he has.
So that's a kind of hyper localization, very
Exactly.
customized vision that integrates a lot of complex.
It's just this enormous
data.
amount of information. It's got to come down to, I have to make a decision today about how to spend this money to best protect my community or protect whatever it is. And I want to do that. I want to make a fact-based decision process, and that's what's going to have to happen. That's what climate services is when that ever happens. That's what that's going to look like.
And we've seen this privatization of weather and climate data over the last decade plus. Given where we're at now, how do you view the trends of what that's going to look like in the next decade?
Right. So all the science that's going to develop this collection of tools that are able to synthesize this information to provide that very hyper-localized information, that's going to be federally funded science that has to be done. There's an enormous amount of unknowns and work that has to be done there. The actual delivery of that information, it's going to be a public-private partnership. There's definitely going to be private companies that are going to be able to tell people, well, we can provide more value added on top of whatever the government is able to do. So I can see that there's going to be a private-public partnership in the actual service delivery. But the underpinning science, that's, it's too big. You can't expect the private, and too long to deliver, and the private sector is not going to be able to do that.
And that's to a variety of clients, whether those are financial services, insurance, homeowners,
everybody,
the range of folks.
Yeah.
Great. Ben Kirtman, thanks very much for
My
talking.
pleasure.